Hey everyone, welcome to my channel of books, Gurrs and Purrs. My name is Leslie, and today I'm going to be talking about a couple of things. What I'm going to be reading for the month of November that I was just dead set on reading, but also just recently, Kim from her YouTube channel, Native Lady Book Warrior, is hosting a indigenous author readathon. It's called the Skoden Readathon. And so I'm also going to be joining in on that. And so today what I want to do is I want to talk about the books I am going to read, and definitively, like I have 3 that I really want to read. But I also want to talk about all the books on my shelf that I could find that I've already read that are by indigenous authors, and also all the books that I haven't read by indigenous authors that are also on my shelf. This year my goal is to really not go out and buy so many books, which I don't think I quite failed at, but I really just want to focus on reading books on my shelf. And this is a theme, a goal that I'm going to be continuing on to the new year, and probably the one after that, because I have plenty of books on my shelf to read. All right, so the first ones I'm going to start with are, can you see my giant stack? But that's what we're going to get to anyways. So the first book, I just recently talked about this in another video for a book haul, because this is one of the books that I ended up buying, and that's Calling for a Blanket Dance by Oscar Hokia. And let me see. You know what? I'll read a little bit about the author on the back sleeve. I don't usually do that. So it says, the author is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and the Kiowa tribe of Oklahoma from his mother's side, and has Mexican heritage from his father's side. He has an MA in English with a concentration in Native American literature from the university and a BFA in creative writing. So he also has short stories, which I didn't know about. He works with Indian child welfare in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. Find him at oscarcohia.com. So that's a little bit about the author. I love the cover. I think there was like a promotion that was circulating on Instagram, and a couple of other people, and it might just be Kim, that posted about it or reposted about this author's release. And I'm just going to say that I'm a sucker for book cover art, and I just thought this was really an intriguing cover, you know, just kind of seeing that money is on the brain. I think one of the ideas that came to my head is capitalism, among other things. So that's really what kind of enticed me to look into the book. And in the sleeve it says, the author's debut takes us into the life of Ever, whose family, part Mexican, part Native American, is determined to hold on to their community despite obstacles everywhere they turn. Ever's father is injured at the hands of corrupt police on the border when he goes to visit family in Mexico, while his mother struggles both to keep her job and care for her husband. And young Ever is lost and angry at all that he doesn't understand at this world that seems to undermine his sense of safety. So that just sounds like a book that I'm going to just blast through. It sounds incredibly engaging. I look forward to reading that for the month of November. All right, so this is another book. I think I bought it at the same time, along with Calling for a Blanket Dance. This is a collection of poetry, and it's called Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza, and it's by Gloria Anzaldúa. And so I'll read you the back of this as well. I don't know if I can show that to you. It says, rooted in Gloria's experience as a Chicana, a lesbian, an activist, and a writer, the essay and poems in Borderlands, La Frontera, the New Mestiza, profoundly challenged and continue to challenge how we think about identity. So I think I won't say anything more than that. It just sounded interesting to me, and I really look forward to reading this. And I also think that this is poetry collection, and poetry collections I tend to blast through a little bit easier, and I enjoy reading short story collections or poetry collections amidst any other full-length novel that I'm reading, just because it kind of helps break up the monotony and has a lesser page number usually. So I look forward to reading this. The next book I'm going to talk about is another one that I also bought this year. Before I talk about it, I just wanted to say that I bought this book from Eso Won Bookstore, and I posted, if you follow me on Instagram, I did post about that particular store. They are a Black-owned bookstore, and they just closed permanently. They've been around for several decades, and I don't think it was sustainable for them to have a physical store anymore. But if you do want to support that store, you still can order online. They have an online bookstore, and I'm going to post a link to their website below. I subscribe to their newsletter, their monthly newsletter. I think they're still doing that every month. And if you're interested, you could do that as well. So the book that I bought from Eso Won Bookstore is Mexico's Nobodies by B. Christine Arce. And over here in the what do you call it? Not subtitle, but it says The Cultural Legacy of the Soldadera and Afro-Mexican Women. And on the back it says, Mexico's Nobody examines two key figures in Mexico's history that have remained anonymous despite their proliferation in the arts. The Soldadera and the figure of the Mulata. B. Christine Arce unravels the stunning paradox evident in the simultaneous erasure in official circles and ongoing fascination in the popular imagination with the nameless people who both define and fall outside of traditional norms of national identity. So this sounds right up my alley. I'm really enjoying this year reading nonfiction books, and I enjoy books that talk about, how do I put it, what the stereotype people project on others of what they think someone should be, and also juxtaposed against that the complexities of who real people really are, and that really just pierces the stereotypes, right? So I really cannot wait to read this. I've read one other book about Soldadera. I cannot remember the name, but I read it earlier this year. So I look forward to reading this, because I also feel like the other book I read also does not include what this book is covering. So I know I'm going to enjoy this. All right, everyone, for this next section, I'm gonna grab all the books that I've read by indigenous authors that are on my shelf, and we'll see how that goes. Oh my goodness. I'm trying to see if I'm missing anything. Yeah, I think that's good. All right, I don't know where to start. I think I'm gonna try grabbing nonfiction first. Oh yeah, that's nonfiction too. Oh, I'm already dropping my books. All right, I changed my mind. I'm not starting with nonfiction first. And I'll explain later. Okay. I'm short, so I'm always like sitting on my on my foot, on my leg. All right, so Johnny Appleseed, I think this came out last year, and it's by Joshua Whitehead. He has a book coming out on November 17th. That's a release date for the States, and so I'm going to be grabbing a copy of that in November, and so I'm going to have to blast through that towards the end of the oh no, I'm sorry, the lighting is kind of crummy right now. Anyways, I'm gonna buy that in the middle of the month, and kind of add that to the readathon event. All right, anyway, so Johnny Appleseed by Joshua Whitehead is a debut novel, and oh gosh, you're gonna need a rock and a whole lot of medicine is the mantra that Johnny Appleseed, a young two-spirit, indigiqueer, and Indian glitter princess, repeats to himself in this vivid and utterly compelling debut novel by Joshua Whitehead. I absolutely love this book. I'm trying to think of an example of what to compare it to, and I'd have to say that I'm a huge fan of On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And although these are very different books, I feel like the structure and in the way that both authors tackled writing the story is similar. For instance, both authors let go of plot to better service a story that's character driven. And I really love that. I really love the fact that this story doesn't necessarily have a beginning to end linear story. It kind of goes back and forth, again, like similar to Ocean Vuong's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous. This is very, at times, I don't want to say heart-wrenching. It's just very deep, but also there's plenty of humor in it as well. And it's also very much like a coming-of-age story. And I think you'll really enjoy this book. So this is definitely something to pick up. And also, because I read this book, I just knew that whatever this author writes, I'm going to want to read, because he writes really beautifully. All right, so I have poetry. Is this the only poetry collection? I think so. This is by Joy Harjo, but I feel like I have other work by her, and it's somewhere on my shelf. So this is She Had Some She Had Some Horses, and it's a poetry collection. I'm really not good at breaking down poetry. I've said that before, so I think I'm just going to read the back. On the back it says, Joy Harjo is an internationally renowned performer and writer of the Muskogee Creek Nation and was named United States Poet Laureate in 2019. The author of 8 books of poetry and memoir, Crazy Brave. Her many honors include the Jackson Poetry Prize, the Ruth Lilly Prize, and it kind of goes on from there. And on the back it says, She Had Some Horses, a literary event of importance. The poetry here is a mythic and timeless character, native and lyrical in its expression, profound in its reflection of a worldview that is at once precise and comprehensive. There is much of the oral tradition here, much that is worthy of our closest attention and deep respect. I did do a review on this that you might want to watch, but again, I'm really not good at summing up or breaking down poetry. That is definitely a weak spot that I'm working on. All right, so our next one. I just realized I forgot to read about the author. And so on the inside it says, Joshua Whitehead is an Oji Creek Nahia Two-Spirit Indigiqueer member of Peguis First Nation. He is the author of Full Metal Indigiqueer and the winner of the Governor General History Award for the Indigenous Arts and Stories Challenge in 2016. Currently working on a PhD in Indigenous Literature and Cultures in the University of Calgary English Department. Johnny Appleseed is his first novel. All right, the next book is Winter Counts by David Heska Wanbili Whedon. Winter Counts is a crime novel, and I enjoyed it. It was completely engaging, and this is also a book. I mean, there are plenty of authors that I've really loved recently, but this is definitely a book that I read and I just decided whatever this author writes, I'm going to read. The author has said that he is going to continue this book into a series. I'm hoping it's following the main character, but if he follows any of the other characters, I think that would be like a really incredible read. And so the main character of the story is Virgil Wounded Horse, and he's like a local enforcer, a vigilante, because although this is fiction, it takes from the realities of the federal and local governments not really helping out at all in some cases, or all cases, to help the indigenous community when there's a potential crime or someone needs help. And so because of that, that creates an issue where vigilantes come in to help solve whatever the issues are. So he's definitely a character that's hired muscle. But one of his cases becomes personal when it ends up involving his nephew. And I believe his nephew goes missing. I'm trying to remember, something like that. And so something that starts out what he thinks might be small becomes bigger and bigger, because it ends up having to do with drug cartels. And I'm not giving anything away. It even says on the back. And it was just a really great read. And I just enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the inclusion of talking about music in this story as well. I don't want to say too much about that, but this is a riveting read, and this is definitely one of the books that I really just like plowed through because I enjoyed it so much. The next book I'm going to talk about is There by Tommy Orange. This is his debut novel. It came out in 2018. I believe I read that the same year that it came out, I think. In the story there is not one particular focus on a character. There's not just one protagonist. You're seeing the story play out through different characters' eyes. And the only thing that they have in common is that they're all preparing to attend a big Oakland powwow. And as a reader, we get to learn about each person's reason why they want to attend this powwow. I really appreciate what this author does in the novel. I've seen so many interviews with him because when I love a book, I'll just start watching all the panel interviews I can. And he has discussed about how he created all these different characters to follow because he wanted to just paint a picture of the fact that each culture, each person is their own unique person. And so sometimes, you know, there are these stereotypes people have about a certain group or community, and this is a way to break away from that, you know. And I really love what he accomplished. There are some things that were just really touching that even though he's writing for a community that's not mine, and actually he said that when he wrote this book, it's not for anyone else but his community. I felt like there was so much that was really tackled universal themes of identity in ways that was really beautiful, personal, and touching. So this is definitely another author I'm really gonna pay attention to. He hasn't published anything yet, but I did see an interview with him not too long ago where he said that he may want to continue this book as a sequel, and if he does, I'd really love to read that as well. On the inside it says Tommy Orange is a recent graduate from the MFA program in the Institute of American Indian Arts. He is a 2014 MacDowell Fellow and a 2016 Writing by Writers Fellow. An enrolled member of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes of Oklahoma. He was born and raised in Oakland, California, and currently lives in Angeles Camp, California. So this is another writer. Anything he writes, I'm going to be reading. So even though I'm trying to keep my shelves contained, you know, they're going to expand at some point. All right, the next book is Notable Native People, and it says 50 Indigenous Leaders, Dreamers, and Changemakers from past and present. And this is by Adrienne Keene. I love books that are profiles, and it doesn't have to be a particular theme or subject, if that makes any sense. I just enjoy them because the illustrations are beautiful, but I'm really getting a snapshot of a person that I may be interested in learning more about. And this is a great way to do that, right? To kind of, with any profile books, to kind of dip your toes into some knowledge about someone. And that usually just sets me off to read more books or whatever information I can get about a particular person. So I really enjoy this because not only does it shine a light on different Indigenous people, but very specifically their accomplishments that at times really don't get any acknowledgements or credits. So this is a really great read, and I think you'll enjoy it. The next book is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This is a horror novel. I'm not really big on horror, but this book is so good. Stephen Graham Jones is like on a whole other level. This is another author where I've watched several interviews with him. And I can't say this is something that I recognize. It was when I heard an interview with him, my mind was blown away. And so what he does in this novel is that as he's telling this tale, there's so many nods to other literary works and how they're structured. And I was trying to look for an example inside, and so like the first section is like a haunted house telling, like the second section is a slasher, and the third section is like a monster tale, but it's all one tale. It's really talking about the structure of what he's done. And once he told me that, I went back and read it again because I thought that was so cool, because I think I was just so engrossed in the story that I wasn't paying attention to like how he crafted it. And anyway, so I'm just talking about how much I love this book. So what this book is about is a group of friends from an Indigenous community. They did something that violates a rule within their own culture. And so years pass by, we get to get a peek into each of those friends' lives, and how there's an elk that comes back to seek revenge in a way for what happened. I'm trying not to say too much, but this was such an incredible read. I keep saying that, but it was really, really good. I'm not a big horror fan, but at some point I'm going to want to read all his other books, and he's written a lot. He's written a lot. And something else that I really enjoy about this book, that's kind of similar to what I said about a nod to other structures, is that he also makes literary references that I noted about other literary works. So someone will say something and you realize he's actually using the title of another literary work. And that's probably like the most I could actually recognize as far as references in his book. But I really enjoyed it. So this is another good read. And also I think this is another book where he mentions music as well. And I always try to note what artists, authors talk about, whether it's other literary works or music. I always like to take note, especially if it's music I'll put on that particular artist's music while I'm listening to the book, and so I just found that like an interesting aspect. All right, the next one. All right, the next three are going to be memoirs. And so we have Heartberries by Therese Marie Mailhot. And this was a New York Times bestseller. She has an interview with Trevor Noah that's really good, but Trevor Noah from The Daily Show is an incredible interviewer anyways. So on the back it says, Heartberries is a powerful poetic memoir of a woman's coming of age on the Seabird Island band in the Pacific Northwest, having survived a profoundly dysfunctional upbringing only to find herself hospitalized and facing a dual diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder and bipolar disorder. I also feel like that doesn't, I guess it does summarize what the book is about, but I also feel like the author explores the fact that she's from an indigenous community, and when she's put in these situations where she's receiving health care from these institutions, there's this like, I want to say like this cultural disconnect, or I feel at times she doesn't feel like she's taken care of by the system. I'm saying that as an oversimplification and also what I took from the book, but I think you'll really enjoy this. It was a hard read for me at times. This is from her perspective. It is a really raw look at her life, and I just had a lot of personal feelings about it, but I also think that's really great because that means that something in this book, this memoir, resonated with me and touched me and really caused a lot of emotions. It made me feel some type of way. So I think you'd really also like to read this. And on the inside it says about the author that she is from Seabird Island Band. She graduated with an MFA from the Institute of American Indian Arts. She served as Saturday editor at The Rumpus and was a columnist at Indian Country Today. And so it goes on and on, but I'm trying to keep it brief. So this is a really good memoir. And okay, of all the memoirs, I think this is my favorite of the stack that I have. And it's A Mind Spread Out on the Ground by Alicia Elliott. Oh, this was a heavy one as well. The author has her memoir written in short essay form, I believe. And I also feel like this is the most cohesive for being short essays of the memoirs that I've read, of the stack that I have. The author talks about growing up on and off a reservation, her life with her mother who has mental illness. I believe her mother is white and her father is indigenous, which is also leads to a conversation about identity as well. And on the inside it says, actually no, it's on the outside. Alicia Elliott's writing has been published in the Washington Post, the Globe, and the Mail, Vice, and the Best American Short Stories 2018, among others. She has been shortlisted for the Hillary Weston Writers Trust Prize for Nonfiction. Born in Buffalo, New York, and raised between there and Ohio, she now lives in Brantford, Ontario, with her husband and child. This is really, really beautiful. Throughout the subjects, there's just so much love she has for her family, even though this is also a very vulnerable telling of what she's gone through her family. And at the end of the book, she asks very deep questions of the reader. And there's just certain content that could be kind of hard to read at times. And what she really asks of a reader at the end, I mean, there really is a little questionnaire section, is for us to really think about how we feel about some of the things that were discussed and how are they handled in this book. And I don't think I've seen an author do that before. There are authors that will have like a book club discussion section, but that's not what this is. This is really the author asking the reader to dig deep, and I thought that was really beautiful. And it's also really hard, right? So this is another read that I think you'll really enjoy. All right, the next book is Bury My Heart at Chuck E. Cheese by Tiffany Midge. This is also, I think it's like a memoir, nonfiction, short stories all put together. And this does discuss at times identity, but it goes further. There are just so many snapshots of the author's life and just the characters that she comes across. So this is also incredibly funny with a ironic, wry voice that I really enjoyed. And on the back of the book it says, Bury My Heart at Chuck E. Cheese is a powerful and compelling collection of Tiffany Midge's musings on life, politics, and identity as a Native woman in America. And on the bottom it says, Tiffany Midge is a citizen of the Standing Rock Sioux tribe and was raised in the Pacific Northwest. She is a former columnist for Indian Country Today and taught writing and composition for Northwind Indian College. Midge's award-winning books include The Women Who Married a Bear and Outlaws, Renegades, and Saints, Diary of a Mixed-Up Half-Breed, and resides in Moscow, Idaho. All right, so that's another good one. And I'm gonna have to move my other stack soon. It's gonna fall. All right, the very last book of the stack of books that I've read before are The Inconvenient Indian by Thomas King. It's called A Curious Account of Native People in North America. Let me see. On the inside it says, Thomas King is an award-winning novelist, short story writer, scriptwriter, and photographer. His books include, and then he gives a whole list of all the books he's read. He is a popular CBC radio series, The Dead Dog Cafe Hour. He is a professor of English at the University of Guelph, where he teaches Native literature and creative writing. And on the inside it says, because I don't think I could actually summarize this book up well enough, and I read it a while ago, but it's a good read. In The Inconvenient Indian, Thomas King offers a deeply knowing, darkly funny, unabashedly opinionated, and utterly unconventional account of Indian-white relations in North America since initial contact, raging freely across the centuries and the Canada-US border. King debunks fabricated stories of Indian savagery and white heroism, takes an oblique look at Indians and cowboys in films and popular culture, wrestles with the history of Native American resistance and his own experiences as a Native rights activist, and articulates a profound revolutionary understanding of the cumulative effects of ever-shifting laws and treaties on Native people's land. You know, I'm so glad that I read that because it's all coming back to me. I think what I really enjoyed about this book was the author's witty sense of humor, but I feel like he gets the past and the current and just makes the connections so clear, and the repercussions of the damage that treaties have done. That's like, again, an oversimplification, but I really loved reading this book, and at some point I'm going to want to go back and read it again because it's been a while. And I also have my daughter reading it on her own because it's just a really good read. All right, now I'm gonna go to my next stack. Oh my goodness, how am I gonna start this? All right, bear with me because I just like pulled stuff off my shelf today on a whim to do this. All right, everyone, this stack is gonna be all the books I haven't read by indigenous authors that are on my bookshelves collecting dust. I'm gonna go ahead and continue with Thomas King because I have several books by him on my shelf that I'm gonna slowly tackle next year and this year, I think. But we'll see. All right, so the next book is Green Grass, Running Water. And on the back it says, let's see, strong, sassy women and hard luck, hard-headed men, all searching for the middle ground between Native American tradition and the modern world, perform an elaborate dance of approach and avoidance in this magical, rollicking tale by Cherokee author Thomas King. Alberta is a university professor who would like to trade her 2 boyfriends for a baby, but no husband. Lionel is 40 and still sells televisions for a patronizing boss. Eli and his log cabin stand in the way of a profitable dam project. These 3 and others are coming to the Blackfoot Reservation for the Sundance, and there they will encounter 4 Indian elders for their companion, the trickster coyote, and nothing in the small town of Blossom will be the same again. So again, this sounds right up my alley. I know I'm gonna love reading it. Still haven't read it. And also the premise kind of reminds me a little bit of There, where there's multiple characters planning to meet at some point, you know, but they probably don't know each other, right? They're just all going to the same event. So that sounds interesting. I love a tale where people are interconnected and don't even know it. So that's a good one. All right, the next one is The Truth About Stories, a native narrative by Thomas King. And the back it says, stories are wonderful things and they are dangerous. In his widely read and frequently taught The Truth About Stories, native novelist and scholar Thomas King explores how stories change who we are and how we understand and interact with other people. From creation stories to personal experiences, historical anecdotes to social injustices, racist propaganda to works of contemporary Native literature. I know I'm going to love this type of book because there's a book by author Stephen King called On Writing, where he talks about how he started writing, how he writes, just some really practical information, but somehow it was really engaging, even though it was a book that was a little bit part memoir, part how-to. So I think this is also something in the similar vein that I'm really going to enjoy. All right, the next one, which is the last book I have by Thomas King, is The Back of the Turtle. I think I bought this used, and it says, winner of the Canada Council for the Arts. Trying to see. Oh my goodness. Look at, I even have the receipt in there. Okay. So on the inside it says, when Gabriel Quinn, a brilliant scientist, abandons his laboratory and returns to Smoke River Reserve, where his mother and sister lived, he finds that almost everyone in the community has disappeared. Even the sea turtles are gone, poisoned by an environmental disaster known as the Ruin. The only signs of life Gabriel finds are a stray dog named Soldier, an enigmatic, bossy woman named Mara, a kid named Sunny who runs a dilapidated motel, and his absentee dad, and a rascal old soul named Nicholas Crisp. So, I mean, this is kind of big. But you know what? I'm going to get through it. When? I don't know. But here it is. All right, the next book is a book that I also bought this year. And it's one of those books, I don't know when I'm going to read it. It might be this coming November, but we'll see. Yeah, I'll talk about more later. Okay, so it's called Fresh Banana Leaves by Jessica Hernandez, PhD, Hailing Indigenous Landscapes Through Indigenous Science. And on the back it says, despite the fact that indigenous communities are among the most affected by climate devastation, indigenous science is nowhere to be found in mainstream environmental policies or discourse. And while holistic land, water, and forest management practices born from millennia of indigenous knowledge systems have much to teach all of us, indigenous science has long been ignored, otherized, or perceived as soft, the product of a system, centuries-long campaign of racism, colonialism, and extractive capitalism. Jessica Hernandez, a Maya Chaorti and Zapotec environmental scientist, and founder of environmental agency Piña Sol, introduces and contextualizes indigenous environmental knowledge and proposes a vision of land stewardship that heals rather than displaces, that generates rather than destroys. So this is another one I'm going to want to read in November, and I don't know how I'm going to make it work, but we'll see. We'll see. There's going to be a mountain of books to read in this coming November. Oh, guess what? There's another book by Thomas King. I misplaced it. All right, so I guess this is the last book by Thomas King, and it's called Truth and Bright Water. His new novel is a warm and magical story. His new novel is a warm and magical story set in truth and bright water, sister towns separated by a river that runs between Montana and an Alberta Indian reservation. Together they form an unusual and special community. There's a dinner with the same special every day, and characters like Lucy Rabbit, who believe Marilyn Monroe was Indian and will not give up on becoming a platinum blonde. And it kind of goes on, but I don't want to read too much of it, but this also sounds good. I don't know. Thomas King is just such a witty writer that I really enjoy, and so I think this would also be a really good choice for the month of November. The next book is The Night Watchman by Louise Endrich. I feel like I have another book by her somewhere on my shelf. I couldn't find it, so. On the back it says that the author has won the National Book Award, the National Book Critics Award twice, and has been a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. She has received the Library of Congress Prize of American Fiction. The author is a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, lives in Minnesota with her daughters, and is the owner of Birch Bark Books, a small independent bookstore, which I didn't know. So I'm going to check out that bookstore, see if they have an online store. And on the back it says, Thomas Waszhaszk is the night watchman at the jewel-bearing plant near the Turtle Mountain Reservation in rural North Dakota. He is also a Chippewa council member. He is also a Chippewa council member who is trying to understand the consequences of a new emancipation bill in the United States Congress. It is 1953, and he and the other council members know the bill isn't about freedom. It is a termination that threatens the rights of Native Americans to their land and their very identity. So this is a book that sounds really good. I don't know if I'm going to read it for the month of November. I just have a feeling that it's very thick for one, and I don't know if I'll be able to get through it, considering that I do have those 3 books that I talk at the beginning of the video that I really want to get through. So if I'm going to be reading any books, they're going to be with a lesser page number to try to make a lot of books happen in the month of November. The next book is The Heartbeat of Wounded Knee. This is another very large book that I don't think I'll be able to get through, but I still just wanted to talk about it. And it's by David Purrs. And it says Native America from 1890 to the present. And on the back it says about the author. The author is a Ojibwe from the Leech Lake Reservation in North Minnesota, the author of 4 novels and 2 previous books of nonfiction he has written for the New York Times, yada yada yada. And it says the book is about the long-held idea was that Native American life essentially ended with the U.S. Cavalry's 1890 massacre of more than 150 Sioux at Wounded Knee. Melding history with reportage and memoir, David Purrs uncovers a different narrative in which the depredations of each era also spawned new modes of survival. The seizures of land gave rise to increasingly sophisticated legal and political maneuvering. This sounds really good. I picked up the book because I did see that I was going to cover so much time in history. I didn't realize that this is also part memoir, and I think this intrigues me more. This it seems similar to The Inconvenient Indian in that way, because in The Inconvenient Indian, Thomas King is talking about history and how it relates to current events, for lack of a better word, but it's also part memoir, right? It's very personal, and so I think that I'm also really going to enjoy this book as well. All right, the next 4 books are by 2 different authors. So I have Sherman Alexie's The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. I don't know if I'm going to read Sherman Alexie's books this year, because next year I have a specific project I want to do, and that's all of next year. I want to read books by the same author for each month. And this is an example of how I have 2 books by the same author on my shelf, and so I want to read them in the same month. So I kind of want to reserve these for next year, but we'll see. All right, so it says on the back, Junior is a budding cartoonist growing up on the Spokane Indian Reservation. Born with a variety of medical problems, he is picked on by everyone but his best friend. Determined to receive a good education, Junior leaves the res to attend an all-white school in the neighboring farm town, where the only other Indian in the school is a mascot. Despite being condemned as a traitor to his people and enduring great tragedy, Junior attacks life with wit and humor and discovers a strength inside of himself that he never knew existed. So this sounds so good. This is also a banned book, and I think because it also tackles alcoholism or something like that. I didn't know that, but my local independent bookstore happened to post a list about banned books that they carry, and this is one of them, so that was surprising. So I definitely want to read that. And the next book by the same author is The Lone Ranger and Tonto Fight in Heaven, with a new prologue. This is the 20th anniversary edition. I didn't know that. All right, so on the back it says, it has been 20 years since Sherman Alexie's landmark first collection, The Lone Ranger, now reissued for a new generation of readers. This collection of 24 enduring tales depicts life in and around the Spokane Indian Reservation, introduces us to some of Alexie's most rambunctious, heartwarming, and memorable characters, showcasing Alexie's signature wit and unmistakable acuity. This is a must-have collection for avid fans and first-time readers. Okay, so this is a short story collection. I know that. I'm all about it. I love my short stories. So I'll definitely enjoy that. Oh my goodness, I have to move because I've been sitting on my foot this whole time. Oh my goodness. All right. So the next 2 books are by the same author, and this is House Made of Dawn by M. Scott Momaday. And I did read some of this at some point, and I put it down, but that was a time in my life when I was a bit of a scatterbrain and I just couldn't get into the narrative for some reason. So I really like to go back to reading this. And so it says, a young Native American, Abel, has come home from a foreign war to find himself caught between two worlds. The first is the world of his fathers, wedding him to the rhythm of the seasons, the harsh beauty of the land, and the ancient rites and traditions of his people. But the other world, modern, industrial America, pulls at Abel, demanding his loyalty, claiming his soul, goading him into a destructive, compulsive cycle of dissipation and disgust. And the young man, torn in two, descends into hell. I think this is, you know what, I bet I couldn't get into this because I started reading this during the height of the pandemic, and I don't think I could handle reading it at the time. I don't really see a profile on the author. It just says that the author was born in 1934, and it kind of lists all his other books that he's written. So I'm going to want to read that. Again, I think that's one of those books I want to read next year rather than this year. The other book by M. Scott Momaday is The Ancient Child. And I don't know if you've ever read the book Happy Birthday Moon, but the illustration kind of reminds me of Happy Birthday Moon. And so I think that's what caught my eye. Once again, I really kind of gravitate towards covers at times, even though that's really not what I should be doing. But anyways, I really like this cover. And so on the back it says, N. Scott Momaday shapes the ancient Kiowa myth of a boy who turned into a bear into a timeless American classic. The Ancient Child juxtaposes Indian lore and Wild West legend into a hypnotic, often lyrical, contemporary novel. The story of Locke Setman, known as Set, a Native American raised far from the reservation by his adoptive father. Set feels a strange aching in his soul, and returning to tribal lands for the funeral of his grandmother is drawn irresistibly to the fabled bear boy when he meets Gray, a beautiful young medicine woman with a visionary gift. His world is turned upside down. Here is a magical saga of one man's tormented search for his identity, a quintessential American novel, and a great one. All right, and there's a little information about N. Scott Momaday on the back of this one. It says he's a poet, novelist, painter, professor, and storyteller whose work celebrates Native American culture and the oral tradition. His accomplishments in literature, scholarship, and the arts have established him as an enduring American master. He is a recipient of numerous awards and honors, including the Pulitzer Prize for Fiction and a National Medal of Arts. So I like that. This is one of those, I really want to read this next year. I don't want this to be one of the reads for this year, but we'll see. We'll see what happens, because even though I've gone through all of those, Kim from Native Lady Book Warrior BookTube channel has a criteria, or I guess you could say like a rubric of what we should be reading. So it's not just indigenous authors, but like she'll just have like prompts. And so we'll see if I have the books that fit within that prompt. Again, I still want to go grab that book by Joshua Whitehead on November 17th. That's the release date for here in the United States. So I don't even know if that's going to even fit into a prompt. I have to look at it. But I'm also going to put the link below for her video discussing what the requirements are basically. All right, everyone, this video is turning into a giant giant talk. I didn't mean it to be this long. I kind of put this together last minute and wanted to get this out because I'm just really excited about this readathon event. and we'll see how it goes. All right, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, comment below. Let me know what you're going to read for Kim's readathon event, the Skoden Readathon event. I'd really like to know. Maybe you're going to have suggestions that'll interest me. She also, one of her choices is middle grade. I don't know if it's YA. I think it's middle grade books. And I don't know if I really have middle grade or if any of them count. Maybe, let's see. Maybe Sherman Alexi's book, but I'd have to look it up to make sure it falls within the requirement. All right, I chatted enough. Again, like, subscribe below, and I guess I'll see you later.